Hey, what's up, guys? Big congrats, man. Just shout out to you guys first and foremost. A lot of you guys are starting to see the vision, and I really like the growth and development from a lot of you guys. And I'm just gonna say it. I think this is a swing trader's market right now. It really is, especially with a lot of these names pulling back into previous resistance or just kind of structural pullbacks. And just obviously getting positions built out into those supports now, and once they confirm, obviously. But a lot of these trades played out today, and it was an excellent day. You guys obviously know about the TSM heartbreak, where it was a little bit too heavy, and I think I just got a little bit over emotional with it and didn't let the structure really confirm, right? Remember, we were adding into this spot here that ended up selling into my risk, right? But it just ended up being a higher low, and instead of trading my risk and letting it break through on a weekly, I obviously got emotional and stopped out just because this daily bar here. I mean, dude, in the last 20 grand on that, and if you guys know now, right, I was up 49,000, and then QQQ, I'm not QQQ, Crowd, AMD, and then Shop ended up having another push here, kind of going into the end of day. So I'm up at nearly 54,000. Yeah, literally in a 30-day rolling period. So still have a whole another month to go here in October. I really plan on like not slowing down, but just really locking in on the next couple trades. And that's kind of where I want to start, right? I guess we'll review QQQ. Like, why did I go short? It looks pretty simple, right? I mean, a lot of people probably thought this was a flag and shit. It probably is a flag, right? But I thought this would seep a little bit lower. There is an unfilled gap from technically here, right? If we go towards the open, from the close right here. It's going to look green, right? I usually have these as gray, but that's an unfilled gap, guys. It's a hidden gap. And I thought we were building liquidity here from this daily low here, 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 right? And I thought we were going to probably undercut it from data, especially with those dark pools that we have been seeing. I thought they were bidding underneath people's stops. I thought we would get filled, reclaim, and then start to mark up, right? And that's usually how it goes. And there's a reason I put it in the lotto section. I only took 5 contracts for about $1,500 of risk after a $12,000 day. I'll take those odds any day, right? Especially if it leads me into a long position, which I do plan on taking if we do get the sell-off here for that second consecutive higher low. If you guys need me to mark those again, one, that's the low, one, two, right? Somewhere in this general range. And that's what I was looking for. And I don't really like being a buyer here in this premium range. Like, this is not good risk to reward, so I really don't want to be a newfound buyer here, especially with the VIX kind of lurking around 20. I'd rather see this pull back to like 16 or so. Then I'd be a buyer of new positions, especially if this can pull down to my level. But yeah, just felt like it needed that pullback. There was some data that was leading to it as well. But of course, right, we ended up gapping up. We did sell down, and these contracts would have only been, I think, like negative 27%. But I did close for a 50% loss, so I lost about 750 on that. Not a big deal. But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, I am positioned still with 6 contracts, and I've been very transparent about that. I still have 6 contracts of the 500 call for December. And then I did start, if you guys remember, it was on this day here where I was like, okay, we could get like a weird thing where we end up closing above and holding here, and we just pop, right? We get a random gap up to 496. That did not happen, right? We ended up kind of closing right here, and then we sold a little bit, 11 points, and then we ended up rallying back up. But I still have those 3 contracts. They were down like 50% as well, but now they're only down like 22%. So nothing super crazy. Those were the October 18th. And yeah, I mean, I think that can still recover. That's just nice to have like a shorter expiration just in case we do rally, paired with my longer term. And then obviously I took those short term puts. But yeah, I still think that this needs to come down. I'm going to stay with my gut. And I really don't even think that this needs to be a level here, guys, anymore. If I'm being honest, that lower high doesn't seem to have respected it much. But yeah, QQQ, just would like to see this sell down to 471, give us that third higher low, and then I would be looking for a position up into 496, 500 for the end of the year. Ideally, we get that volatility for that downside move going into the elections. I mean, I really just gotta wait, right? Just gotta wait. But now, kind of to the review side of things, I do still have some stuff on here that I drew out, but maybe I'll just re-add this later. But had a confirmed breakout that really stemmed yesterday. But if you guys remember, right, like I started this position on this pretty basic, I thing that I do over and over again. If you guys don't know already, I trade the same system over and over and over again. We saw this play out pretty much with everything today, right? Crowd, obviously we pulled down here, and I thought this was our bottom, or it was temporarily our bottom when we first started the position. As it pulled back into not only the progression gap to act as support, but also this lower high. So just a simple SR flip. Remember, I said I only started one contract. This was at like 3.5, but then we were looking for it to potentially pull back into the EMAs. And I told everyone, like, hey, I'm going to be really lenient with this one. I'll add as we pull into the 21 and potentially the start of this gap here. And as it started to pull down, that's when I started to add. And then I got majority of my fills here as we touched the bottom of the gap. Now I almost had a TSM moment, and if you guys know what I mean by that, it's where I added too quickly, or too heavily too quickly, and that's really what got me emotional about that trade. I think that's part of the reason why I stopped out, even though it didn't break structure. But I did add I was over 100 contracts right here. And if you guys didn't know, this was a very spready contract, so there was potential for this to even sell a little bit further down to 267, and it was already at 273. So that's a decent drawdown, right? And if it does pull back, right, I mean, that's a 2% move on the underlying, as well as it being a spready contract. I could have been down like 50-60% with a full size position, and then it comes into play, like, do I add again? Do I add another 100 contracts or 200 contracts to get my cost basis to a respectable spot? And I would have been in a pickle, right? So I mean, I did kind of get lucky here, I would say, that it caught the top of this gap and then rallied from there. But luck is part of the game. I'll call it for what it is. I'm not trying to act like a magician. But yeah, we had a really good move here. This confirmed on Thursday, and did exactly what I wanted, right? I told everybody, you have to kind of foresee some of these weekly candles and really contextualize what kind of trade it is. Is it a swing trade? Is it a day trade? And if it's a swing trade with multiple months or a month or two of time, you have to figure out, like, hey, am I going to overreact to a 5-minute candle? Ideally not, right? Am I going to overreact to a 15? Ideally not, but you can use 15s, right? I did say you can get a bias and derive a bias from a higher time frame, and that gives you your thesis or your bias, and then trade it on a lower time frame, or at least kind of look at it from that perspective. And this was beautiful, right? We ended up kind of pushing up to 285, which is what I said by the end of the week I wanted to see be reclaimed, and I was really focused on not only the daily but the weekly. And look what we got on the weekly, guys. This is a beautiful candle, beautiful. It's not as high a volume as I would have liked, but I don't think we necessarily need that with this potential accumulation that occurred. But yeah, we got this perfect close, and if we go down to even smaller time frames, we can see just how perfectly this played out, right? We ended up kind of opening above 285, and we started to sell. It's important not to overreact to this because it does have an opportunity to see if buyers will hold that progression gap, right? And we ended up kind of testing it here on the 15, and it did break below, but this is why I usually trade with 4 panels, with a 5, 15, hourly, and then a daily. So that way I don't overreact, but I can also see each time frame that I want to trade on, right? And typically for anything that's like longer dated, I will primarily use the 15, hourly, and the daily, and then I'll check the weekly as need be at the end of the week. And this was perfect, right? I mean, it kind of sold off, held in this general range, didn't really create separation underneath 285, and on the hourly, right, I mean, if we take off extended hours, it didn't really close below that at all, right? It just kind of held right around 285. So this was a perfect test of what? The bottom of the progression gap, and then what's it likely going to do? Make its way to the top of the progression gap, which it did. It pushed up towards the open. What did we do? We flagged right here, right, if you guys need to see this. Oh, dang, it's not working, guys. Where's my little thing? Here we go. We had like a little flag right here, if you will, and then we broke out. What did we do? We pushed up to the top of the progression gap at 290. What did we do again? We flagged right around 290, give or take, right? We just pulled back into that general range. So now both sides of the progression gap are being tested. We had a low, a higher low, and then a continuation, right? So now I expect us to be pushing upwards to this like $300 level. And really this trade isn't over with. Since we had such a good entry right here, I'm just going to take profits as we lead into these resistance levels and keep some for the actual target. But right, we still have to think internal external range. This has a ton of room to make its way up to this 342 spot and this next gap, where you just really traded one range, right? And I'm going to take profits on this. So like I said, and I've shown you guys, this is a little spready, but I'm up around 87%. We saw a high of like 115%. And I'm taking trims into that all day, especially with how heavy of a position I had. But I really think we can do something like this now where we push up, maybe gap up to 300, and you have to start thinking, right? We did test this progression gap at 290 on a 15, but you can still get a daily structure, right, where you get some kind of pullback on the daily. So we could hit 300 and pull back and hold 290 and then push out and then break it, pull back again onto that high, and then make our way up to 316. Or right, what can we do? I talk about this a lot. We could just push up here, high tight flag, break and base, and then get this here. And there's a whole new entry in range either off of that or this high tight flag, right? Or if we get the pullback on a 2.9. There's a lot of options here for a roll. That's what I'm trying to hint at. And then we can obviously start to trade this and continually trade it. Don't take your eyes off of this up to 316 and 336, right? So this trade has a lot more to give. It's going to be one of my primary focuses, and I can use those profits that I now secured with having runners as well to be able to double dip, right? And be able to get, now let's say we get an entry here. I mean, I think we can get an extra 41 bucks on this with profits, right? Which is always a good thing. So once again, congratulations on that. Let's take a look at AMD because this one was a beauty. I put this one on Twitter as well, but just very simple, right? I mean, I've talked about this so much. This was our previous redistribution range. Now, obviously, it looks like support, but this was reaccumulated for a markup, and then they distributed here at these highs. We sold for lower lows, and then they started to reaccumulate here. Excuse me. And now we're just kind of trending up towards this gap again, right? I don't know if we'll be able to get a push all the way up to this 205 spot. That remains to be seen, but it's pretty apparent that we got the same exact setup, right? Where we had not only a ton of volume support here and old support becoming old support becoming support again, but also this resistance here at this weekly lower high, right? And also a daily lower high. This was just a general range to be looking at, right? And I wanted to see this at least hold or reclaim 162. Now, if you guys remember, this ended up kind of breaking down. I started my position right here at 162 on Monday, and it did seep down a little bit, but it's important, right? I did have late October calls. So I have to once again have context for my trade. I was going to give this all the way down to 154, guys, which is the bottom of this zone here, and I was going to be willing to add into this. If we also tie in our EMAs, it was basically just pulling into the EMAs on low volume. So I was being pretty lenient with this one. I said this about this and crowd, and that's in kind of giving this trade room to breathe and peppering in contracts about 5 at a time. And really that's what I did, right? And it pulled down pretty nicely into the 9 EMA. Didn't go any deeper than that, but this was not a cutting edge support, but just a general range, as I said. And then what we ended up doing, right, is we ended up pushing up, and you guys can see this on Thursday, right? We ended up closing above 162, which is the top of what? That lower high here. And take a look. I mean, this is usually how these trades end up playing out, and it kind of keeps a lot of people out of these trades. But on Thursday, look at this. We ended up rallying through 162. I'm sure people chase this, but it gave you the perfect entry. It sold down, had a higher low, lower high, lower low, and then it really consolidated here, but it consolidated against a very key daily and weekly 162. This was kind of our high from Wednesday as well. Dude, this was just such a perfect level, and it consolidated here right before NFP, and then what do we get? Big gap up, we pull back, right, and then we have a pretty much just straight away shot. We end up rallying for this, get a higher low, we rally again, we have another consolidation above the 169 gap, and now, right, I mean, I think this has potential to either consolidate here like this for a couple days, or it's just going to rally. I didn't even know, guys, they have an AI event that's coming on the 10th of October, I want to say. So the 7th would be Monday, so on Wednesday then they should have their AI event. I think this is just going to rally into that event and potentially be a sell the news event. I don't want to predict too much, but I do think this continues into Wednesday. So I would probably, I don't know, if it gaps up, I'd probably stay away, or it starts to just kind of have a straight trajectory up to this this gap fill, I would stay away from it. But if it does sell into 169.80 or like 170.90, which is Friday's close, I would probably be willing to add it if it doesn't already hit target. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, we should have runners left down on this position. This was another insane trade. This one 140%. If you guys saw my positions, I also took some on my own. I think I'm allowed to do that. I took a little extra risk with higher premium contracts. I took November 15th 185 calls, but the main one that I had with the bulk of my size was the one I alerted. That was the October 25th. I couldn't think of the expiration. October 25th, 190 call, and those went over 140% at the close, and I assume they're probably going to push like 200, 230% once we reach target here. Probably a little bit more, just considering volatility. I think we're going to get a lot of volatility leading into this level, especially with the event coming up. So yeah, and that's a sick one. Once we hit target here, I'll probably take this one off the watch list as well. What else did we have, guys? What else did we have? Oh, shop. This one's a little unfortunate. Dude, we got the pullback, guys, on the 77.05, and I just didn't take it. I didn't roll, so that's my fault. If you guys remember, though, I mean, I took my position here. I've had the March ones since way back here. Remember, guys, we were taking the March contracts back way here. I remember I got down to runners as we pushed and pushed into this gap here, and this was kind of like I think this is a fake breakout. Remember, it sold, and I held on to my runners even through like 80% drawdown. We had the gap up, and I really haven't looked at them, but remember, we got the new position here at this progression gap right here. Move that across. We got our entry on this day here, and then it rallied, and obviously we pulled back on a 77.05, and I didn't add a new position. I didn't roll, and I made a mistake today, guys. I was on the way back from the gym. And I close this. I don't know why I did that. I think we can see a continuation even on Monday and potentially all next week, but this thing looks so damn good. Really, it's going to push 83.50 and then maybe high tight flag off of that or a break in base above 83.50, and I think it just kind of continues to 90. But this has been one of the least spoken about charts, and these are usually my favorite because it's not oversaturated. There's not a lot of liquidity built that needs to be kind of taken out. And yeah, this thing has just moved. So you guys can see, dude, this is one of the more pretty charts, and this is definitely going to get saved to a folder. But yeah, I close this one out. I'm no point in really talking about it much more. I'll probably have alerts just set at 83.50 to see if I want to take this moving forward. But I am officially out of shop, and it's off the watch list. Now, the only thing I'd probably be looking at moving forward here is MU. Not my favorite, I'll just say that just yet. I would still like to see it come down a little bit more to 95.84 before I build a comfortable position. This kind of just looks like a potential lower high or a bear flag, if you will. But yeah, I want these to be a little bit more discounted. I would like to see the 618 at 95.84, and I think there's an opportunity to trade this back up, like I said, into next year to that 130 level. And this really confirms once again, oh god, my voice, guys. I've been talking so much. I'm going to get judged so hard for that one. But above 108.78. Yeah, so probably something like this where we break down, right? This would be the ideal spot, higher low off of that, and then make our way up. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Maybe, and I'll kind of give you guys like a sneak peek at what I might be looking at. Microsoft's a watch for me off of this higher low trend line. A lot of these have been giving us a second consecutive higher low. This does look good. I think that we could get a move off this trend line. And then really this kind of confirms above this previous resistance, right, at 427. And I think if that happens, you can get a move upwards into this 441 to 450 spot, right? There's an unfilled gap here at 450, so I think that could happen. And then Amazon, another good one. I posted this on Twitter and on here, right? Just kind of looking for calls off 180, 187. Very simple SR flip, lower high, turn into support, pretty easy. If you took that, right, you had a pretty nice gap up, right? We ended up opening $3 higher, ended up pushing about 580, was around that to $6. So those are probably going to be the only two that I add next week, or if anything, I might just look at Amazon and then take Tesla as my secondary one, right? I still have those Tesla 300 calls that I haven't touched, and I'm probably looking to roll, right? This looks good on the daily with a reclaim above this 250 spot, right, which is the top of this progression gap. And on the weekly, guys, I mean, this just looks like a wick right into that progression gap. It kind of got very close to this this middle zone, right, and within that old gap. at 234. Just it looks healthy, right? This still looks very healthy. I will say that. So I'm going to be watching this, although it's going to get a little bit spicy because we do have the Robotaxi event as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much positioned for that if I don't get a re-entry. So we'll have, we'll have this interchangeable with Microsoft, in my opinion. But just a sneak peek into next week. But for the most part, guys, if you guys haven't noticed, right, less is more. Just focusing on a handful of charts, and those charts will pay you guys, right? If you just kind of don't take your eyes off of them, you have conviction in those, and you just understand what needs to happen to get you the good entries. The market more than often will provide that for you because other people with the money that can move the markets are trying to shift it that way as well, right? So Crowd, AMD, MU are probably the main focuses moving forward. I still have Intel as well. I mean, this chart looks fucking good as well. Dude, it's just swing season. I don't know how else to say it. This is a swing season. Those that are patient, right, and the ones that aren't impatient will likely still have the capital needed to be able to capitalize on this. Whereas the people that are trying to catch these moves now, right, and buy these, a lot of people are getting caught in like crazy, crazy volatile stuff like Coin or Mara or trying to time Bitcoin, and those people aren't going to have any money, guys. They're going to get liquidated, and then the rally's going to happen, and then they're not going to have money, or their account's going to be blown, or they're going to be too afraid. Right now it's just about being patient, and I promise that it will take care of you. So that's going to be all, guys. I'll have a scan coming out on Sunday. Don't make fun of my voice cracking. This is like my second attempt trying to do this, so I've been talking for like an hour straight. Anyways, yeah, made up pretty much all of my losses on TSM, and then obviously I doubled that. And if you guys saw in the Discord, I mean, yeah, I don't really like to flex too much with that stuff, but I did very, very well over the last rolling 30 days, and I think there's an opportunity to make that and then some going into January. So, I mean, I'm excited. You guys should be excited as well, and I think I have the charts for that. All right, I got to toot my horn real quick, Oxy, and I also got to criticize myself because, dude, this thing went absolutely bonkers. I just noticed this. Our entry was down here, right? Remember at 51 with risk being at 49.91. I closed like an idiot at 53. But, dude, if you guys held this, and I know a couple people in chat did, I want to give you a huge shout out. You're a better trader than me. For sure. Like, dude, this thing went straight to target. I probably should have held a runner or two or held the full position. I don't know what I was thinking. But yeah, let's say theoretically you were to hold this the whole way. Dude, literally a 9% move on the underlying. And this went straight to our target at 55.12 and then some up to 55.76. Just an absurd move here. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to do this on an increasing volume, as I said, right? As soon as you see increasing volume, I would probably get a little worried here. But dude, yeah, absolutely nuts. This was also part of our trade. I just want to include this in my review because I did take this off of that 51.13 to 50.42 progression gap, right? We took it on Monday, and then we held it through Tuesday. I should have added a little bit more on this little dip into the open. But yeah, just kind of launched into 53, claimed this little pivot here at 53.11, and that's actually where I closed. And next time, I'll just get a little bit better, right? I should have held this, and let's take a look on the 15. Like, I don't think that was anything crazy to hold through. I mean, I don't know. It did look a little bit bad on the 15, but yeah, it is what it is. The great trade to kind of add into the system as well, because this was a picture-perfect example of a footprint candle. We talk about footprint candles all the time, and it started here with this inverted hammer at the double bottom.